Welcome back to a bonus edition of the Upper Tier Podcast, brought to you by, as always, the Dynamo Podcast Network, available on YouTube, Spotify, Anchor, worldwide really at this stage. And joining me tonight for this bonus episode called The Best of the Best is Mr. Ian Kelly. How are you doing, Ian?
President's back.
Excellent.
Flying visit. Flying visit.
Excellent. So on this bonus show, we're going to take a look at some combined 11s from the Premiership and the European leagues. And we're going to have to delve in as well to our top 10 strikers, which should generate interesting debate. So, Ian, I'm going to let you start with your Premiership team. Fire away there.
Yeah, I like this. So what we're going to do as well is, because we were talking about this today and I thought we were just doing the two teams. So some of it I'll call on the fly, but I have the two teams. The top 10 strikers I should pretty much be able to get, no problem, of all time. With the European 11, I didn't pick a European 11. I just picked a World 11. So what I might do is with the World 11, I listen to yours and then see who I would replace out of it. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, it's cool.
My top Premier League 11 of all time is probably going to upset some people. But there's a method and a reason as to why I did that. I went in. I suppose I'm old school like yourself, so I always go for a 4-4-2 just so you can get your shit in. Do you know what I mean? There's no point in these three at the back with the wing backs and all. We're not getting into that.
Well, I purposely did 4-3-3 so I could leave out a few people that normally I'd have to include.
Ah, you see, you were smart.
Yeah, I went to
well, I was kind of looking for the heat, so. But there's a method to the way they would play though together too. So my manager, I went for Jose Mourinho, of course. It's going to be pragmatic, but with this team, I don't think they'd have any reason to be pragmatic. To be fair, I think this is 2004, 2006 Mourinho. You know,
I can sense the tumbleweed already. I can sense it.
Oh yes. So in goal, now this might be controversial to some people, but I don't see how it's controversial considering he pretty much holds all the records in the Premier League, and that is Mr. Peter Cech. I've went for Cech. Now, some people, Man United fans, will be saying, "Oh, Schmeichel." To be fair, Cech had as long a career, if not longer, and broke Schmeichel's records. And he wasn't a Judas in the end, United fans. Don't forget, Schmeichel played for Man City as well. So just leaving that in there, you know. So I've already won you back on my side now. At right back, now this was controversial. Some people would have went for Gary Neville or something like that. You know, the way people just do it. I've actually went for a man who I think has had an amazing career in the Premier League, and that is Mr. Pablo Zabaleta.
Okay, interesting.
Because I really rate Zabaleta. Good, strong right back. I know some people thinking at a Chelsea point, they probably thought I'd put Ivanovic or something in like that, or, you know, but I actually went for Zabaleta because I think he's dynamic enough, he's strong, he's an old school Argentinian type bomber. So I went with Zabaleta. At left back, there was only one choice for me here, and there was only another option that could replace him. That was Ashley Cole. Went with Ashley Cole. It was between him and Dennis Irwin, to be fair, but I went with Cole in the end because I think he's a little bit more dynamic in the modern age, to be fair. My first choice, centre back, there's no surprises here. It is, of course, Captain Marvel, Captain Fantastic, the one and only John Terry. And for my partner with John Terry, this is going to be an indestructible defence, by the way.
This is a drum roll, this one, I'd imagine. Go on.
Nemanja Vidic. Okay. I think that partnership there, that's two boys you're going to have a hard time battling against. And with Mourinho being the manager, you know that it's going to be a tough day at the office if you're a striker. So on the wings, I'll start with the wings. On the left wing, I went with Mr. Eden Hazard. Don't think anybody can throw their toys out of the pram with that one. Before he left, he probably was the best Premier League player, you know, for the last 3 to 4 or 5 years, or at least up there anyway. And on the right wing, I went with Cristiano Ronaldo. His goals speak for themselves, even in the Premier League. Now, this is where it gets interesting. This is where some Liverpool fans get a bit cranky. I went with the better midfielder, the higher assists, the higher goals, and that is Mr. Frank Lampard. Miss you already, Frank. And I went. Now, the second one is
before you move on from that. Is that not the same man who went to Man City as well, like Schmeichel?
Different story. He signed for New York, and they infiltrated him.
Yeah,
they infiltrated us.
They moved the chess pieces around as a.
They did. They were very sly about that. So you can kind of give him a bit of a get out of jail free card for that one, you know. He didn't go from Sporting Lisbon there. Like it's a different story. His partner, again, because I'm thinking of how this two-man midfield works and not just having two out-and-out attacking lads, I went with Roy Keane.
Okay.
Because I think they would complement each other well. I think Keane would complement Gerrard as well. But I think Keane will complement anyone, let's be real. And then up front, this is where it gets interesting. Everyone goes for their Shearers and their Henrys and all that kind of stuff, and that's fine. But I've went with Mr. Didier Drogba as the holder, as the target man, and playing off Didier Drogba, I've went with Sergio Aguero. Now, imagine that front pairing, little and large. Do you know what I mean? So, I mean, before I get to the subs there, Niall, actually, I'll go with the subs and then you can comment on that 11, right?
Yeah.
We'll do a recap. So, my backup goalkeeper, of course, is Peter Schmeichel. So, there you go, lads. Don't cry. My backup centre-back, I've went with Rio Ferdinand. Because I think if you take Terry out for an injury or whatever, there's familiarity in that. My left back, I've gone with Dennis Irwin. I could only pick one wing back, so I went with Irwin on that. Carragher just missed out, to be fair. He did just miss out. I was thinking because I did always like the Terry Carragher partnership as well while it lasted. I think it should have had more longevity. So it was just by a cunt hair that Ferdinand got in ahead of Carragher. And of course, Steven Gerrard is on the bench, so don't worry. We need a super sub. Here he is. This might surprise some people. As my only winger on the bench, I went with Mo Salah. I think his record speaks for itself in the 3-4 years that he's been with Liverpool there now. And then, of course, he couldn't have a bench without Kevin De Bruyne on it as well. So I have De Bruyne there. And then my last sub is the mighty Thierry Henry. That's a very strong bench as well, I might add. But so just to recap there, and then you can talk about the first 11 at least. Managing this team, check and goal, centre-back partnership with Terry Vidic, full-back Zabaleta, Cole, wingers Ronaldo and Hazard, centre midfield partnership of Lampard and Roy Keane, and up front, Didier Drogba and Sergio Aguero. So, Niall, over to you.
I'm thinking if I'm the manager, I'm trying to figure out how I keep Roy Keane and Frank Lampard happy and in tune. I think they'd end up killing each other, maybe.
Well, that's possible, but
yeah, I did like your front pairing is very good of the big man and the small attacker. I like that. Yeah,
there was a method. There was a method behind it. Yeah,
very blue and Chelsea running right through the whole thing. In fairness.
Well, to be fair, Chelsea are the most successful team in England over the last 15, 20 years. So, followed by City. And you know who I'm aiming at. Maybe City over the last 5 to 10 years. Fair enough. I'll give you that. Yeah. But no, we got Vidic in there. We got Roy Keane in there.
Yeah.
We've 2 Liverpool lads there as well. We've Irwin on the bench and Ferdinand. So I mean, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have 5 United lads between starting and the bench. 2 Liverpool, 2 City, 1 Arsenal, and the rest is the mighty Blues.
It's an impressive team.
If you're coming up against that team though with Mourinho managing, imagine if you're getting long balls up there with Drogba nodding them down to little Aguero and then Hazard on either side of that, good Lord, if you're the opposition fullbacks, is all I'd say.
Yeah, it's very impressive. And the bench is even very impressive.
Yeah, Stevie G coming on for Frankie there.
Yeah.
Or Kevin De Bruyne even.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very impressive.
So what have we got from the Hogan side? Who's Hogan's heroes?
Well, this is going to interest you with me wearing the cap and all. I haven't got a Liverpool player in my starting 11.
Okay.
So,
myself.
So for manager, well, I wouldn't expect you. You're a Chelsea fan. But for manager, I had to go with Sir Alex Ferguson without a shadow.
Okay. Well, definitely. Don't say Sir. Just call him Alex. Yeah, we'll just call him Alex.
In goals, I switched with you. I put Schmeichel in there, and I mean, obviously, then Czech is on the bench.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's it. You can flip a coin on that. Yeah, you can flip a coin.
I went with the consensus at right back. I went with Gary Neville. Even as a Liverpool fan, as much as I detest the guy, you can't put.
You just want a job on Sky Sports now, don't you?
I don't know about that.
That's the gig you're going for next.
They could just tag me in their Spotify if they want to be.
Dynamo Podcast Network is just a launching pad for Niall here.
It gets better. At left back, I agreed with you. I went with Ashley Cole. I don't think there can be really any argument on that.
No.
Centre backs, I switched with you again. I put in Rio and John Terry. But you'll be surprised.
That can work as well.
Yeah, but you'll be surprised who I had on the bench because I didn't have Vidic. I went to 4-3-3 anyway. So in midfield,
right,
I went with the CDM as Roy Keane. I went with then the two attacking midfielders. I went with Patrick Vieira and Frank Lampard.
Nice. So, I can see what you're doing there.
A lot of muscle in there now. You're not getting past that midfield too.
No.
You know what I mean? And
I think if my team is playing against yours, I can slightly alter it in that Aguero plays as almost an attacking midfielder there. So we go 4-2-3-1.
Yeah. Then the three I had up front, right side, I had your main man Didier Drogba. On the left side, I had Thierry Henry. And
nice.
up the middle, I had Alan Shearer.
Just for the goal record alone, yeah.
I just think the amount of goals in those three up front is just phenomenal. Because you have a powerhouse, you have the slickness of Henry, and then you have the absolute poaching and goal prowess of Alan Shearer. I just think it has a nice combination there of quality goals, tap-ins, powerful goals, all that kind of stuff,
I think when they meet Vidic and Terry, though, they might get a little bit hurt.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
No, I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
So then on the subs, I told you I had Peter Cech.
Yeah.
I also had Lee Dixon.
All right, nice show.
I had Vincent Kompany, of course, on my bench. And my only red, Steven Gerrard, on the bench. And then I topped it off with David Beckham, Cristiano Ronaldo, and Wayne Rooney. That was my bench.
Jesus, you went very pro United, didn't you?
Well, I figured with the defensive side that I had, most of those guys didn't get too injured too often either. So I thought I'd load the bench with the attacking. But yeah, very offensive team really when you think about it.
I like it.
Because even the likes of John Terry had goals in him and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So.
Oh yeah.
And the midfield
is the highest scoring defender ever, isn't he?
I think so, something like that. All right. Yeah. So that's what I went with. I went with a 4-3-3, and plenty of power in the midfield, plenty of variation of goals up front, and a solid back four line with a heck of a keeper in nets. Yeah,
absolutely. Do you want to do the World 11 straight away, or do you want to do the top strikers maybe just to mix it up?
We can do the top strikers if you want, yeah.
I'll let you go first on that if you want.
Yeah, well, I picked out 10, and I mean, you could pick 10 now from current players if you wanted, but I tried to mix it up a little bit. Obviously, if you're a football fan and Pele and Maradona aren't in your top 10, then you're not really a football fan. You really need to check yourself. So I've Pele and Maradona in there. Anyway, but I started out with Raul as my first pick. Now, these are not in any order.
Nice.
And then I went for Marco van Basten. Then I went for Brazilian Ronaldo, so we don't get confused. Then, as I said, I had Maradona and Pele. Then, obviously, Messi is in there. And Cristiano Ronaldo. So the next couple will be interesting. I went for Filippo Inzaghi. And then I went for the main man, Alessandro Del Piero. And then I topped it off with that Italian flavor, that man who made the rat's tails cool, Roberto Baggio. So that was my 10. I won't tell you the honourable mentions because you might have some then as you're thinking, so I won't. I'll go into them after you've done your 10.
Yeah, well, I won't. I didn't do them in any particular order. Yeah. But I also had Pippo Inzaghi, who Liverpool fans know well, as do Man United fans, to be fair. I also went with Henrik Larsson, one of the greatest goal scorers of all time.
Yeah.
I went with Hernan Crespo, unbelievable goal scorer. I also went with Gabriel Batistuta.
Oh, yes.
I went with Maradona. I've obviously, and we're talking old school strikers here, so I'm coming from a different angle. Like, I mean, I don't look at Ronaldo and Messi as your out and out strikers and whatnot, even though their fucking goals tell a different story. But I went with Del Piero, number 6. I went with Ronaldo for number 7, but not the Cristiano. The real Ronaldo.
The Brazilian one, yeah.
Yeah. Call him the real Ronaldo, but like in fairness, I love Ronaldo as well. So I went with him. I went with Shevchenko from his Milan days.
Yeah, good call.
Because let's be real, for many a year he was the best out and out striker on the planet, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Went with Maradona. And then finally, I went with Cristiano.
Very good.
So I left Messi out on purpose, and that's not because I dislike him. It's just because he's a money-hungry cunt.
Listen, on all that list, let's be honest, at some stage they were all money hungry at some stage, just a different level.
They didn't nearly bankrupt their clubs though, let's be real.
No, you'd be leaving them out more for the politicking even than the money hungry, really.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Well, when he's nearly putting Barcelona off the grid, then you're kind of like, you know what, go away, you will you?
Yeah, he's nearly throwing it into a sack over his shoulder and carrying it to PSG with him, isn't he?
Plus, I'm not, again, we had this debate before about the Ronaldo Messi. Ronaldo has now shown it in 3 different countries, and the 3 countries where you would take it to the bank, bar, say, Germany.
And international level.
Yeah, and international level, whereas Messi's just stayed at the one show for the whole time, and I think that's what he will do. But no disrespect to Messi, but yeah. That's my top 10. There's probably some surprises in there that you didn't think of, was there?
Yeah, I'd probably, I don't know, I'd be hard pressed to put Crespo in there, but I see why you put him in. You know what I mean? Like I'm sure loads of people would say to me, why did I put in this player or that player? But I tried to get a mix.
Look at Crespo's goal record, like from Parma, Inter to AC to even when you look at his goal record at Chelsea, it was 10 and 19. That's a goal every other game.
Yeah.
I love when people say Crespo was a flop at Chelsea. Quite the opposite. He was actually, his goal ratio was better than Drogba's in terms of a game-by-game basis. Just I think his wife had a miscarriage or something at the time and just didn't work out in terms of they didn't feel at home. But in terms of on the pitch, I'd have a Crespo on my team every day.
Well, you see, I suppose the thing about it when you're looking at your top strikers as well, it's not only the goal record, but it's the importance of some of the goals that were scored as well. You know what I mean? Like you know what I mean? Like you see Messi there, and he goes and plays Celta Vigo, and he bangs in 5, and that's 5 on his record. You know what I mean? But like they're meaningless except it's 3 points in La Liga, really. You know what I mean?
You look at like Crespo signed from Parma for Lazio. Do you remember back in '98 for 36 million, which was then a world record fee? I mean, at that time we were going 36 million, and the lad went in and bounced 36 goals in that year, goal per million.
Yeah,
you know. So it's and then of course Batistuta, who I had on as well. I mean, Batty goal,
incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible player, really, when you think about it. Like, and at a time, really, as well, when they think about it as well, those boys were banging in goals at a time when
Serie A was number one.
Yeah, so but not only number one, it was so competitive.
Oh, but that's
like
what I mean.
Top teams.
You couldn't score though. You couldn't score in Italy. Like if you got a 1-0 in Italy, you were fucking. I mean, look at Ian Rush. I mean, one of the greatest goal scorers of all time. Like, couldn't buy a fucking goal over in Italy. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah.
It's,
I mean, you have to remember back in those old Italian teams at the time. Look at the defenses that they had. You know, the likes of Baresi and Maldini and all.
Well, wait and you see my World 11.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's in Italian, is it?
It basically is. Like,
here's I took in some honourable mentions as well because it is really hard just to pick 10. You know, so
yeah. Well, I mean, Messi and Pele are mine. You know what I mean? Without doubt. I just wanted to pick. Mine was kind of more favourites as well, to be fair, Niall.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It was my favourite players that I grew up watching. So it's not nobody rib us and go, wow, that lad doesn't know what he's talking about. It's more a case of, you know, who I remember as a kid, you know.
Yeah, well, that's why I had Van Basten and Roberto Baggio and all in there.
I mean, Van Basten, Baggio was my first hero in life, you know what I mean? So, you know, to leave him out is criminal as well, like.
So in the mentions, I had obviously Luis Suarez. I think gets a mention. Thierry Henry, obviously. Obviously Didier Drogba. We've already mentioned them in the selections up top. Miroslav Klose.
Definitely.
The man who he holds the record for the headers and all, doesn't he?
Definitely, man. He's ridiculous goal scoring record for Germany. Yeah.
Then
Mr. World Cup.
Then you'd have to mention Zlatan.
Oh, yeah.
And then I mentioned, obviously, Lewandowski. He'd have to be on the list as well. Then I put in Shearer and Rooney. Just in terms of their goal scoring, you know, because obviously Shearer, he spent so much time with Blackburn and Newcastle, really, you know what I mean? So,
Van Nistelrooy, sure. How could you leave Van Nistelrooy out even, you know?
Yeah. Then Ian Rush had to throw in there. And Romario.
Oh, Jesus, yeah.
Mario.
Yeah.
I was only listening to that story the other day. Remember where your man said the coach told him if you score 2 goals, you can head off to the Brazilian Carnival. And he went out in the game and he scored the 2 goals and he headed off to the Brazilian Carnival. He wouldn't let him go otherwise. Great story. And last but not least, Gerd Muller.
Yeah.
That include Gerd Muller. So there has to be notable mentions when you're doing 10 because 10 is, you know, you could pick 10 from if you wanted. You know?
My notable mentions there as well would be, without a shadow of a doubt, obviously Baggio, like I mentioned there, but Christian Vieri as well. What a fucking striker Christian Vieri was.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that lad could score. I mean, you were guaranteed 20 goals minimum from that lad every single year, and he was actually a big boy as well.
Yeah.
Who else have we got?
And you know something about him as well, if you go back and look at him, he was world class in terms of goal scoring, but he was world class in terms of when people didn't actually worry about assists. He provided a lot of assists as well. So he was good
that's the thing. Well, that's why Del Piero is there every day in my top 10. You know what I mean? Because I mean, Del Piero could get you like the up near the 20 mark, but my God, when you looked at David Trezeguet's goal ratio, look at the amount of assists that Del Piero had. It was actually shocking.
Well, see, the assists these days, the assists are the flavour of the month when people talk about strikers that aren't scoring goals and they go, but look at all his assists. You know what I mean? But these guys were banging in goals and providing assists constantly.
In a time when it was actually, especially in the Italian league, actually harder to score because that was where tactics were based. That's where, you know, all this tactical stuff that we have now is basically German and fucking Italian. Yeah. You know?
And it was nearly at an age as well where when a striker was providing an assist, it was nearly frowned upon.
Yeah.
I mean?
Big time. No, you take the shot. You take the shot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Another honourable little bit mention for a player that was a fantastic player for Lazio as well back in the day. Chilean player, Marcelo Salas.
Yeah.
Another little dynamite of a player who's only about 5'8". He almost reminds you of Falcao a little bit. And Falcao, I mean, Jesus, his goal record was none too shabby either. But I suppose we move on.
Yeah, so let's go look at our world stroke European combined 11s and our subs.
Yeah.
Do you want to start or will I start?
You're the boss, man. You pick.
Right, I'll start this one then. Again, I went with manager Alex Ferguson. I mean, you could have picked any of 10, really, you know what I mean? But I went with Alex Ferguson. In goals, I went with Iker Casillas.
None of them. The only problem with you picking Alex Ferguson, none of the cunts would have understood what he was saying. So you're already at a.
Yeah. They know the feel of a shoe to the forehead, though. So.
Yeah. Well, it depends who you have in your team. If it's Zidane, then he's fucked.
I'll get to that. Yeah, so in goals, I went with Casillas. At right back, I went with Sergio Ramos.
All right, nice.
Left back, I went with Philip Lam.
Nice.
And my two centre backs, I went with Carlos Puyol and, of course, Maldini.
Puyol?
Yeah.
Okay.
Then, again, I went 4-3-3 here, right? So, my three central midfielders, if you like, I went with, of course, Xavi and Iniesta. And I partnered them up with Zinedine Zidane.
That's a scary fucking midfield right there.
Yeah, because I went with the power and the nous. I went with the nous and the skill of the two boys and the power of Zidane. And then up front, right forward, I went with Lionel Messi. Left forward, I went with Cristiano Ronaldo. And up the middle, I went with Lewandowski.
Okay.
And my subs, I went with Buffon, of course, for goals, goalkeeping. I went with Roberto Carlos, Dani Alves, Steven Gerrard, David Beckham, and Wayne Rooney.
So how did Lampard make your starting Premier League team, but he didn't even make the bench?
I wanted to mix it up. I didn't want to create.
I just figured I'd do that because there's somebody screaming at the comment section now going, Niall, I'm going to crucify you now.
That's, you have to mix it up a bit, you know what I mean? It'd be very hard to put Lampard in ahead of the three boys. In terms of...
Well, not ahead of Gerrard, anyway.
No, well, Gerrard's on the bench.
Yeah, we know who the better player.
I have to have a little bit of Liverpool in it.
We know who the better player is. Come on, for God's sakes. No, that's a good World 11. Yeah. I've went with drum roll for my manager here. I have went with the man himself, my favorite manager of all the times, Mr. Marcello Lippi.
Nice.
They're literally my favorite manager of all time.
Very good.
In goal, I've went with Gigi Buffon. I don't think there's a question in my mind that he's the greatest goalkeeper of all time for me. Now, the fullbacks is where it gets interesting. At right back, I went with Lilian Thuram.
Very good.
Beast of a player.
Absolutely.
At left back, in his natural position, I went with Paolo Maldini.
Okay.
In centre back, I went with Franco Baresi.
Nice.
And Fabio Cannavaro.
Tell you, that's a hit squad, isn't it? That's a hit squad.
That's something that's quite. It's quite dangerous.
I wonder how that defense would match up in these VAR days at the moment. There could be a lot of penalties in that back four these days.
They probably just box the head off the referee, I'd say.
No, yeah. Maybe a lot of red cards as well.
Yeah, and no ref. There'd probably be a lot of sub refs as well.
Yeah.
Especially if it was in England, considering VAR in England's the worst of the whole world when it should be probably the best.
I presume we're assuming Per Luigi Collina is refereeing these matches.
He's reffing, yeah, he's reffing, definitely. There'd be no nonsense. He'd be telling VAR to go fuck itself himself.
Yeah, him and Baresi.
Greatest referee of all time, without a doubt, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
At left wing, I went with Mr. Cristiano Ronaldo.
Okay.
At right wing, I went with Lionel Messi. So they could switch, no problem. But right wing is nice for Messi because that's where he earned his stones, coming in on that left foot. In central midfield, I went with Zinedine Zidane and Xavi. And then up front, I have two short men, but good Lord, you'd have a tough time taking the ball from them. Alessandro Del Piero and Diego Maradona.
Very good. Very good.
Imagine the cohesion between those two flicking, because, talking about two players that weren't selfish either. And then Messi and Ronaldo coming in on either side. In fact, they'd probably be all laying balls up for Ronaldo, to be fair.
Yeah.
Except Messi, obviously.
Yeah.
Goalkeeper sub, I went for Oliver Kahn.
Oliver Kahn, yeah. Oliver Kahn.
What a career that man had.
Absolutely.
In the I went with John Terry as a sub. I also went with Alessandro Nesta as a sub. Yeah. I have Ruud Gullit in there as well, because not just Chelsea toys, but my God, you're talking about one of the greatest Dutch players of all time. He could have flipped the coin between Gullit, Van Basten or Rijkaard, to be fair.
Yeah.
But I went with Gullit. I have Iniesta.
Yeah.
Here's one. Fernando Redondo, for anyone that remembers that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
You want to talk about a hard-arsed fucking Argentinian player that could... Do you remember he done Roy Keane in that Real Madrid game? Basically, literally skinned him. Roy Keane said, he didn't even know what happened to him.
Yeah.
Went with Redondo. And then for my final sub and my striker that would come on to try and fix things if things were going wrong, it would be the one and only Brazilian Ronaldo.
Nice.
So very, very Italian team, even though they're not all Italian players. Well, there's a lot of Italian players, especially at that back line.
Very powerful. Very powerful 11, A lot of very powerful. Interesting.
You can tell who watched a lot of Italian football when he was young, right?
Yeah. Isn't it amazing neither of us picked them at all, even on the bench, Gianfranco Zola?
It's very difficult. That one was difficult for me in the Premier League 11, because I do I couldn't go too Chelsea on it, because considering I didn't start Henry, but you could have put Zola in there with Drogba. Imagine Zola and Drogba playing together. Imagine the goals. So it's, but you have to be fair in this as well.
I really enjoyed it today, because I was thinking about guys like Rivaldo and Ravanelli and these kind of guys and all. Really cool,
See, Rivaldo lost all respect from me when he took that dive at the corner kick against Turkey in the World Cup.
Yeah.
When the ball hit his legs and he went down holding his face, I was just like, you know what, you're dead to me. And plus, you play for my most hated team on the planet, other than Rangers, in Barcelona. So, So everybody, I'm a Barcelona hater. You want to come at me? Come at me. Fuck Barcelona. UNICEF me bollocks. They wear UNICEF for a couple of days and then they go and get a fucking sponsor.
Well, you'd be a much bigger Italian football fan, wouldn't you, than Spanish?
Oh, yeah.
Fair to say?
Yeah. Oh, Italian football, even to this day, is still something that I kind of, the first ever team that I followed was Juventus off my own back. That was the first team I ever followed. And that was because, if you remember in 93, just in the build-up to the World Cup, Baggio and Vialli were the men, with Ravanelli and all that as well. So they were You know, that was my Baggio especially was my hero. I had I tried to grow out the big rat's tail and everything. You've probably seen all the young lads trying to grow that and get them beaded, like.
Yeah. And then the minute he missed that penalty in the States, then they all got them cut off.
Oh no, I'm very loyal. I'm very loyal to my players. You know that. Yeah. I think I was probably the only Alvaro Morata fan during his Chelsea days in the last few months as well. I was like, please, just do something, will you?
It's mad when you go back and you look at those older Italian players and stuff like that. Not even Italian players, but players from the Italian league. They were really they were bona fide superstars way before there was ever social media or anything like that. Sure, they were it was just
you couldn't get one over to England for love nor money. Yeah. That's why Chelsea were very lucky, because when they brought in Di Matteo and Zola, I mean, you think about it, Zola was 30 when he came to Chelsea and stayed there 6 years, and I think he won Player of the Year and all during that time. I think Sir Alex Ferguson himself said that that lad is just an absolute genius.
Yeah, he's an absolute wizard. No,
and I think Chelsea were the first to kind of really bring that Italian influence over to England, and then that's kind of stayed with Chelsea for a long time, hasn't it? Even though there's not many Chelsea players that play, with Ancelotti coming in, Shevchenko and Crespo and all these guys coming in, you were kind of like, it's one of those weird things, as I said, that it just so happened. It's probably the location as well, let's be real.
Yeah, well, it's like they're so ingrained in the culture of those Italian cities and stuff like that. You know what I mean? There's a lifestyle thing and a culture thing, you know. So, I mean, you know, that's what drew them down to London, because London would have that sort of variety and that culture as well, you know. Whereas
that's it. The King's Road is right on the way to the bridge. You know what I mean? So it's pretty much, you know, it's fashion. It's the fashion industry of England, so.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's kind of more of an aloof sort of culture, you know, that kind of way. Yeah. Not to say posh, you know, that word is, I don't like using that word, but you know, as opposed to sort of when you look at Manchester and you look at Liverpool, they're kind of more working class grinder sort of cities, steeped in culture in terms of, you know, music and all that kind of stuff and everything.
Oh yeah.
But in terms of, you know, culturally between there and London, I mean, London in terms of its accessibility and travel and all that kind of stuff, you know.
Well, especially West London, you know what I mean? You're talking to, you know, West London, where a property will cost you £1 million, even in '94.
Yeah.
It's but yeah, no, I enjoyed this today now as well myself. It was good to really rack your brain, and you almost feel guilty for leaving certain players out. I mean, you could probably do that list every month and you'd have a different player.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it'd be interesting. It'd be interesting to do it. You know, do it maybe league specific or something like that, or maybe do from the current crop. You know, players that are actually still playing, if you like. You know,
that would be interesting. Yeah,
that would be interesting, because that would rack up some stuff at the moment. Because obviously, I mean, City obviously have a lot of very good players at the moment, but I mean, if you look at combined 11s, there's probably, what are they getting in? Maybe 3-4 players, maybe. At a push.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to do that at a later date.
It'd be interesting to do it towards the end of the season as well, because, you know, different players are going to come into form now at different times as well. Like, you can see, obviously, I mean, the last time I spoke on the upper tier, we were talking about doom and gloom with Chelsea, do you know what I mean? And now we're sitting pretty in fifth and knocking on that door for, I suppose, let's be real, we're all probably going to be knocking for second, to be fair.
Yeah.
But,
and still haven't hit your stride yet.
Yeah, that's the scary thing, you know.
Racking up the points.
I think they finally found a manager that actually knows what to do in that sense, and that's no disrespect to Lampard, but they have a manager that knows what to do with and get the best out of the experience and bleed it with youth, you know. And I think that's the ingredient, really, isn't it? And I think that's where Lampard went wrong. Not to spend too much time on Lampard, but, you know, we look at Jorginho at the moment. Holy Christ, you know, we said that, didn't we, on the day that we were talking about Tuchel's appointment?
Yeah.
You know, you get a tune out of Jorginho, he just dictate the game.
Yeah. And even Alonso, you know?
Yeah. It's just crazy. It's just crazy. And
I think it's really good. I was saying it the other night on an episode of the boys. I think it's really good that he's come in and he's having a look at everyone and giving everyone a shout, rather than sort of following on and going with, you know, the trophy sort of players that have been purchased. He's given everyone a look in to see what they're about, you know.
That's it. That's what it's all about, you know. So it'll be a case of who's next now to go. I mean, I think a I've seen some of the United lads on getting very plucky and stuff and saying we're in a title challenge. I think United have another bad run in them. Not to be too pessimistic towards United, but I do think they have a bad run in them. I think Arsenal. I think they eventually will part ways with Arteta. It's just stop start with them, isn't it?
Yeah, they're struggling. They're struggling again at the moment, aren't they?
They are, like, and I think, you know, with Liverpool and Klopp, you know, you have to take the injuries into consideration. I don't, you know, I've always been an advocate for that. Like, well, you have a squad. You do have a squad, but like to an extent. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you don't have two squads.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like, I think Chelsea are very lucky, like you said, in the sense that they can have such a strong bench, but it's a very young team. They haven't hit like peak yet, like, you know. So that's a different story. That you're looking maybe a year or two down the line there. City have a team of players that are ready now, like, you know.
Yeah.
And that's what you get when you have a Guardiola and nearly $1 billion quid spent.
It reminds me a lot, apart from Liverpool having the injuries, it reminds me a lot of the season that Leicester won the league, where you have a lot of top teams are in transition. So one team got out of the blocks and can't be kind of caught, you know. Now, obviously, this year it's City, which is a different kettle of fish. But, you know, but it reminds me a lot of that. When Leicester won the league, so many teams were in transition and in turmoil and stuff like that. And Leicester just took off and just couldn't be caught, you know.
That's it.
And
the problem with City as well was they had a bit of a bad patch, but the problem was that when City were having a bad patch, so was everybody else.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. No one really took advantage. I mean, you could see it there. You could see it there even the other night, like where a lot of teams at the weekend sort of messed up and stuff like that and left the door open. And then, you know, even Everton getting that last gasp draw, you know what I mean? That opened the door for City there, you know, so that would have inspired them even more against Liverpool. And it was obviously an opportunity for Liverpool as well if they had been able to get the win. But sometimes these doors are opened up, and a lot of teams this season haven't taken advantage of it. But City is a team certainly that has, and that's why that gap is there in the league, really, you know. Not dissimilar to ourselves last season. It's very much a mirror of last season, just swapping it around.
Yeah, Liverpool took advantage. Yeah, exactly. And you kind of had a good season where very low injury kind of intake, and that's kind of what you need. And you can blame physios all you want, but like at the end of the day, this is just not a normal season. You know what I mean? Even the end of last season wasn't a normal season. So it's I think teams will be looking forward to getting a pre-season this year properly, hopefully. And you know, even the big clubs that you expect to spend money won't be spending money. I mean, it's going to be another transfer window this year of United, probably not spending a whole lot. City kind of have to be careful.
Yeah, well, looking at that announcement today from UEFA on this new format for the Champions League, it'd make you believe that they don't want players getting any break at all. They're throwing even more fixtures in now. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's mental. It's just, do you know what? It's just idiots in suits making decisions that have absolutely no fucking weight whatsoever. You know what I mean? They don't. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. To be honest, with you.
They're talking about games going from, I think, did I read today something like 135 to 232 overall in the competition, and I'm thinking these players are not getting a break as it is. And you want another 100 games nearly in there. Now, I know it's spread across teams, but like, it's just like, when does this whole money machine for broadcasting rights end? You know what I mean?
Well, do you know what we need to do straight away to counter that? If that's the case, fair enough. We hear you. However, lower the amount of international fucking breaks. They need to stop. They need to stop big time, because listen, when you have like a little 2-week international break for friendlies, it doesn't matter what morale that you build up within that 2 weeks. At the end of the day, that's not the squad going to the competition. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think they should only be brought to play European fixtures that are competitive, and that is it. And it should be done on a scheduled time where it doesn't interfere with seasons. I'm sick. You know, I know people used to call him Arsene Wenger. For that, and Mourinho and Ferguson used to be giving out about it as well. They're 100% correct. These international fixtures are a fucking curse on players, because even if they don't get injured on international duty, they're coming back with little niggles, needless niggles, that they don't need to have. I think it should be just European competitive. There should be 2 to 3 weeks where you lash a couple of fixtures out of it every couple of days, and that's it. Boom, done. Get these groups over with early. Don't have it like a 2-year, fucking 3-year thing, where it's, you know, they could even be done in the off season. To be fair.
Yeah, but I mean, you want your off season really for your players to have some sort of a rest. But now you have just all these new international tournaments and stuff like that they're trying to push on. And, you know, my biggest fear is, we were only talking about it last night on the Monday mashup, about this whole, you know, the romance of the cup. It's those domestic cups. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to find themselves even in a more throwaway position, because teams just won't have squads to deal with the volume of fixtures. Look at this season. I know it's a COVID season and it's a bit condensed, but like, you've games every 3 to 4 days, and you can see why injuries are happening. Players are getting hurt, and not even hurt, like even mental fatigue of having to show up every 3 days. I think they were talking the other day. I heard a quote, I think from Jurgen Klopp the other day, saying, "But we don't even get to train. All we do is we just decompress down from a match and like have maybe half a training session or one training session. Next thing we're back in another game." Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's just, that's not the way it should be. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, they're only human beings. They're not machines. You know what I mean? Yeah, look, you can't keep on rinsing them.
Well, look, I mean, you know, when you look at the amount of games that were played back in the 60s when the boys were fucking, you know, in 70s when the boys were literally living on beer and fucking, you know, fries before a match. Like, a lot of people will say, well, look, they're athletes now. They should be fucking well able for it. I do hear that argument. However, like you say, they're not machines in the sense, and now you can even make the argument that they're more athletic, that they are more inclined. The game is played at a much higher pace now. You know, lads could just sit and pass around the back for a while and another team could sit back. You know, now it's literally all about tactical systems where players have to be at 100% in order to fulfill their duties, like, you know.
Yeah, but I suppose when you look at it back in the day as well, like, it's like, when you think about it now, most players at the high end these days, they're actually a brand. So even when you're not training or you're not playing a match, you've probably got social media commitments, you've probably got sponsorship commitments, you know, all this stuff is on top of you as well. Whereas the lads, once they were finished training, you know, as you said, they were off to the bar for a few points or a game of golf or a game of snooker or whatever it is. They could decompress and let themselves come down out of that football. But
then again, they didn't get paid 100, 200, 300 grand a week either. So
yeah, but the money is all relative for the time. When you're at the top end, the money is relative for the time. I know it's not like the riches of now, but like, you know, you look at a lot of these players out there now, and you look at the way they're being attacked on social media from a racism point of view, and, you know, death threats and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Would you give up that portion of your income to have your life back? I would. You know?
Yeah, I mean, like, how much money do you need sometimes? I mean,
exactly.
You can sit pretty.
Exactly.
You have a 10 to 12 year career where you're earning, you know, even, you know, say 10 to 12 year career, even if for the last, say, 4 years you're earning your big bucks and you're getting that 300-400 grand a week at the top level.
Yeah,
like that's your money that you put in the bank that goes into your kids' fucking, you know, basically your family's fund. You know, you could literally feed 5 families off that. And these lads, of course, and plus, I've always said it. Now, bar the Messi situation with the amount of money he's getting and purely what he's doing to the club, as far as the rest of them go, I want to see the likes of the Ronaldos get the money instead of the fucking lads in suits sitting eating the prawn sandwiches. Do you know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's the players that bring in the money here, you know. But look, that's an argument for a different day, I suppose.
Yeah, but it's just, you know, it's just in terms of time and commitment, you know, there seems to be no, you know, personal decompression time. You know what I mean? These lads are going in, they're training, they probably have photo shoots, there's branding, there's social media, you know what I mean? They probably never get a minute then. They're probably being interviewed by, you know, outside of social media, normal media, newspapers, Sky Sports, all that kind of thing, you know what I mean? So they probably, like, and then they probably have photographers and media at their gate morning, noon and night. So they never, ever get away from it. You know what I mean?
Then again, though, to be fair, like, as anyone that knows me, I'm a big hockey fan. I've been watching the hockey at the moment. these boys play 86-game seasons, and it's every single night. And I know they do line changes and all, and it's a 60-minute match, but I mean, it's a line change where you have a rest for a couple of minutes, and then you're getting a condensed rubber puck bounced off your fucking teeth, and lads throwing down like so. So it's, I mean, I see both sides of the argument, but I do think that we could definitely help the fixture list when it comes to, I think the international thing is a curse without a shadow of a doubt. I think more so than anything. I think it throws teams off their fucking rhythm. There should be a designated time and place for those fixtures to be taking place, I think. Even if they do it the way they don't do in Europe, where they used to take the winter break, and if they done most of that little mini tournament during that winter break, I think it would be perfect to get to see who qualifies. And if they'd done that twice a year, 2, 3, 4 times over the course of, I mean, the World Cup's a 4-year thing, right? The European Cup is a 2-year thing.
Yeah.
If they could take those little bubbles where they done it, say, twice in a year, or say one big one in a year and a half of one within a year, and they've done that twice over the course of the 2 years, you'd have your group stages done.
Yeah.
And
condense it down more. Like instead of going off for 10 days or 2 weeks, maybe go off for a month and get it done.
What does it prove? Like, I mean, you're bringing, like, look at Ireland, for example. Ireland's a prime example. That fucking moron. I'll tell you one thing. I'd almost look to see if there's a solicitor out there or a lawyer that could take that little hack Martin O'Neill to fucking court for perjury, the fucking prick, with the amount of talent that he ruined in the Irish national team setup. I mean, look at Zach Grealish, one of the players that we're talking about as possibly been one of the players of the year. Declan Rice, Jack Grealish, right, got fucking death threats and all from idiots on social media because he went and pledged his allegiance to fucking England. Yet people forget he actually didn't go on a family holiday to come over and play for Ireland and sit on a fucking bench against some shite team of postmen like Malta and didn't even get a cap out of that. All Martin O'Neill had to do was give Rice and Grealish caps 3 times over the course of those breaks, and he didn't do it. Instead, he put on fucking idiots like what's his name? Glenn Whelan, and fucking morons like this, Stephen fucking Ward, like, do you know what I mean? These lads were getting caps for Ireland. James McCarthy. Like, we could have 2 world superstars in the making playing for the Republic of Ireland right now, but they don't because of fucking Martin O'Neill, and yet we all give out about Giovanni Trapattoni. We're
going to have to do an international episode, aren't we?
I'll tell you, because I can go and rant on this for days. I'm telling you, if I found Martin O'Neill, I'd fucking box the head off him. I wouldn't really do that. We're threatening physical violence here now on Dynamo Podcast Network. I don't really mean that. That's obviously a joke. But you know what I mean? I'd verbally box the head off him. How's that?
That's all. Because verbal's okay.
Like Martin O'Neill, you may as well hire Neil Lennon as your next manager after this hack. Do you know what I mean? Don't
be suggesting these things. These things could easily happen.
I'm fucking telling you. Do you know what? Would you not, like, it's unbelievable what they do. It's like, I'm looking at Zach Grealish now playing for England, literally getting caps. And at the time, I remember lads going, he won't get caps for fucking England. Declan Rice won't get caps for England. Sure as shit, they are.
Yeah.
They are getting caps for England. And you know what? They're benefiting from it. So can you really blame them? Can you call it being anti-Irish? Well, the fact that you had a Northern Irish man managing the Republic of Ireland might have been the problem. Just saying.
Well, that's part of it. But I suppose the other part of it is you probably have an agent in your ear as well saying, you know, if you declare for across the water, you're probably knocking 20 million off your price tag.
Well, at the end of the day, like I say, and I repeat, stone cold facts are that Jack Grealish actually didn't go on a family holiday to go and get his first cap for Ireland, and he sat on the bench. And he done it after that, and after that, and after that, and after that. And guess what? He didn't get it.
Yeah.
So, like I say,
we shoot ourselves in the foot, really, don't we?
Yeah, I'd love to get Martin O'Neill on this here podcast if he's out there listening, because no one will hire him for a job at the moment. So he may as well come on the upper tier and talk to me and tell me how I'm wrong and I know nothing about football, and tell me why he brought a lad into a squad that declined a family holiday and let him sitting on the bench against a bunch of postmen, and then he can tell me how I'm wrong and prove me wrong. More than happy for that.
Hindsight's a great thing, isn't it?
It is a great thing. Yeah. Fucking Martin O'Neill. Shite at Celtic, shite at Villa, shite at Leicester, shite at every other club. No wonder. Do you think there's a club there? Martin O'Neill's available now, yeah?
Shite at Leicester would be a bit harsh, no?
Ah, well, yeah, what? You got them in mid-table every year and fucking brought Neil bleeding Lennon over to Celtic as well.
Yeah, but I mean,
he was 1998 here.
Yeah, but I mean, he was very successful manager at Celtic, and I think like to keep Leicester in the Premiership the way he did.
Pragmatic at Celtic. You talk to most Celtic fans, they're not big fans of his style of play, like.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, but still, the success speaks for itself as well. You know,
I
know you'll argue there's a style and a way to win things, but there's also.
All right, fair enough. Right, so if I give him Leicester and I give him Celtic, okay?
Yeah,
Leicester Celtic.
There you go.
Hey, shout out to Leicester Celtic.
There you go.
If I give him Leicester and Celtic, fair enough, no problem. Because I'm obviously on a rant here. He's got me heated up. I feel like the Orange Sheik of football.
Have go. Yeah. This is a great combined 11 show.
This is a great, yeah, but this is what the upper tier is about, though, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
This is what you want. You want people on for the rants.
Yeah.
The fact is, take all that away. Take his success with Celtic away, and take his Leicester stuff away. Ask a Villa fan about Martin O'Neill, and they'll tell you, "Go fuck yourself." More like in a Brummie accent. And then Ireland hire him after Giovanni Trapattoni. And yet Trapattoni gets called a shite manager, all sorts of stuff. Yeah, you're talking about literally one of the most successful managers of all time in Giovanni Trapattoni. Literally, you know, both on club level and international level. And I think what Martin O'Neill and to an extent Roy Keane done to that Ireland team is just unforgivable. And I think Roy Keane, if he really cared at that time, you know, he came back to the FAI. If he really cared at that time, you would have said, "Fuck you, O'Neill, I'm out." You know, but he was the one there going, "You don't know what you're talking about. Jack Grealish, like talking shite, like." And now he's sitting there commenting on how great Jack Grealish is for Villa,
and that United should go get him.
You know what I mean? United should go get him. So it's like, man, what the fuck, you morons. Do you know what I mean? He's welcome to come on as well. Don't be afraid of him in the slightest.
Well, listen, this has been a great conversation. Near along the combined 11. So till next time, from myself and Ian Kelly, it's been enjoyable.
Never forget the work.